Hello, everyone, and thanks for taking the time to review the real estate market analysis for Cupertino, California. My name is Robert Whitelaw, and I am a licensed real estate broker in the state of California. I'm also a member of the National Association of Realtors and a certified ePro. Now, as we always do, we're going to start our examination of the market in Cupertino for April of 2008 with a look at the inventory numbers. Now, this is the total number of homes on the market, and you'll see, this gives you a nice historical view of how inventory has performed. You can see we get the big peaks in inventory in the past when the market's been particularly difficult. You can also see, though, that from 2004 to 2007, the inventory has remained relatively steady. Now, this is in contrast to what we've seen in Santa Clara County in general and many other communities in Santa Clara County, where over that same period of time, inventory numbers have dramatically increased. So really what we're seeing is in the past few months, we're seeing the first signs of the down market of the county in general starting to affect Cupertino. Now, we would expect this. If a down market's ever going to affect Cupertino or cities like Los Gatos and Palo Alto, parts of Palo Alto, you expect to see affect those cities last. They just tend to be much more resilient communities when it comes to the market. They tend to react to down markets last and tend to react to up markets first. So we're just really at the point where we're starting to see the market effects of the county impacting this particular community of Cupertino. It's also interesting to note that it's not a dramatic change. While it's an increase, and it's a fairly big increase when just compared to last year's numbers, but if you compare how much things started to increase back in 2004 and 2005 for Santa Clara County, as far as just as a ratio compared to the total number of homes on market, it's not that dramatic. So this isn't something that is particularly worrisome to me or anything that I think is telling us something new. The only real new information here is that the down market is finally affecting Cupertino. You can see that it's been relatively flat now in 2008, in April of 2008, when compared to the same time last year. We've definitely had an increase. And that increase is about 28.4%. And it gives us a grand total of 95 homes on the market in Cupertino in April in 2008. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the number of homes that were listed. So these are the homes that folks put on the market in hopes of selling them. And you can see we've had a steady increase in that number. What's interesting is in 2007, despite the fact we had a big increase in the number of folks joining the market trying to sell their home, we actually saw a decrease in the overall inventory, which showed how robust the market was in Cupertino last year, despite the fact that the rest of the county was really suffering around then. Now, we have seen an increase in the number of homes listed at this time of the year for this year. We've also seen an increase in the inventory. My argument would be that a good percentage of why this inventory is up isn't just the negative market effects, but also the fact that so many more people have joined the market to try and get their homes sold. There's a variety of reasons why people might be deciding to list their homes now at a higher rate when compared to the same time of year in previous years. But we really won't get into that now. I'm not seeing a trend that's anything to worry about. I'm just seeing that there are more folks who've joined the market now than last year. Perhaps people are thinking that they're going to have a good chance now, that maybe they're feeling like the market's recovering or they're seeing more buyers out there. And it could be a lot of folks who might have listed earlier in the year under normal circumstances, just waited till now because this tends to be the quote-unquote hotter time of the market for folks who are trying to sell. Now, the overall number of listings was 88. 88 homes were put on the market in April of 2008 in Cupertino, which is a 27.5% increase from the same month last year. And finally, let's take a look at the number of homes that sold. Now, you can see we've had some variation in the number of homes that sold from 2004 to 2005. There was a pretty big dip in the number of homes that sold. But because we're talking relatively small numbers, that looks a lot more impactful than it is. Then it remained flat 2005 to 2006. And still relatively flat in 2007. There was a bit of a boost. Again, keep in mind that the rest of the county was suffering during this time last year, and yet we saw increased sales in Cupertino. And then this year we saw a drop in sales. Again, something that's not horribly worrisome. Sales dropped 37.2%, and that sounds like a lot. That was a total of 27 homes sold. But take into account the magic ratio that we talk about sometimes, where you compare the total number of homes on the market to the total number of homes that have sold, and that gives us about 3.5. So that number means for every home that sells, there are about 3.5 homes on the market trying to get sold, or to put it another way, there are 3.5 months worth of inventory currently on the market. That's a very healthy number. For me, I don't start worrying about a community until I start seeing that number over 4. So if we start to hit 5 or 6, then you know you're in a situation where things aren't good. The county in general has seen that number go up to 14, 15, 16 months of inventory. We've even seen some communities over the past few months that have had 32 months of inventory on hand. So Cupertino, by comparison, is doing extremely well, and I don't see any real big reasons to get too terribly concerned. Now let's go ahead and look at the exact same numbers, except now we're looking straight back to January of 2007. We're not just looking at the month of April. And things you want to look here for are trends, things that happened between March and April last year. Are we seeing the same trend this year? And you can see that we really are. It's a little bit more pronounced this year. We saw a much bigger increase in inventory between March and April, much bigger increase in number of homes listed, when we also saw an increase in the number of homes sold. But in every case, except for the homes, in every case, we just saw a much bigger jump in those numbers. In both cases, they went up, just at different rates at different times of the year. So what does this tell us about what might be coming in the upcoming months? Well, if we look at April of last year, and it might give us an idea of what to expect in May. In May of last year, we actually saw a little bit of a decline in the inventory, with a continuing increase in the total number of homes sold. So we might expect to see the same thing. We said it was a relatively flat market last year with a bit of a decline in sales in June, with a bit of a boost in July. But notice we didn't really get a summer season. We got all of our homes sold really in May of 2007. So the numbers for this year will be interesting next month, because we'll see if we got that same sort of a boost, a same increase in the number of homes sold. But notice how quickly they dropped. Normally, with a summer season, we would expect some sustained sales throughout the summer months. We really didn't get that. We really got a regular decline going all the way into January, all the way into the winter months, which didn't really start to recover until after we got into about February of this year. Now, if you just compare month-to-month performance between March and April, the inventory increased 46.2%. The number of homes listed increased 66%, and the number of sales increased by 17.4%. Frankly, while those are big increases are normal for this time of year. This is when folks join the market. This is when folks tend to want to list their home, which is going to boost both the inventory and the listed numbers. And sales tend to increase because this is also when buyers are starting to make their purchase decisions. And I think that'll continue on for a little while. I think we'll see similar performance to what we saw last year, frankly. Okay, now I'm adding a new slide with information on it this month, with the ratio represented, looking all the way back to 1999. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because I've often spoke of this ratio. We just spoke about it in our last couple of slides, where the ratio represents the number of months of inventory, or the number of homes on the market for each sale. And it's basically a ratio between the number of homes that have sold and the number of homes that are currently on the inventory. And as I said before, anything below about a 4 or a 5 I consider to be healthy and normal. Notice we got really high in 2001. This is a really good barometer number to tell you when things are really getting tough in the marketplace for sellers. 2001, clearly, that was a tough market. 2003 was a tough market. And we've seen that ratio now has increased, and we're seeing things getting a little bit more difficult. But again, nothing that I think is anything you need to particularly worry about, but it's just an interesting barometer. It's an interesting way to see kind of how the market is reacting to the current situation, how the market is currently set up. Is it more of a buyer's market or a seller's market? Now, let's go ahead and move on to home prices. This is an interesting one because we're seeing the same kind of thing we saw in the county in general, but less pronounced. Just like we saw inventory increase, but not as pronounced as it did in the county-wide. We're seeing average home prices increase, but they didn't increase as much as county numbers on average did when it first started getting hit by a downturn in the market, as shown by high inventory and low sales. So I think what we're seeing is a compressing of the effect that we saw in the county. So what I'm saying is that the county sort of had to live through this weird market change stretched out over the course of years. And it looks to me like Cupertino is starting to experience it, but in a more compressed way. So while it took several years for prices in Santa Clara County in general to react by flattening and even declining in general, in Cupertino during that same period of time, look, we did see increases in average sales price going all the way from 2004 to 2007. And now, instead of seeing continuing dramatic increases in prices, what we're seeing is a relatively flattening effect. So where I'm getting at with this is I am anticipating that we're really not going to see a dramatic downturn in home prices in Cupertino, but more likely a flattening of those prices until the market starts to recover. Now, let's go ahead and just talk about what's sold here and what our prices are, where we stand on prices. Now, the average home price change was an increase of 0.7%, so less than a percent change in the average sales price of a home when compared to the same period of time last year. Now, the average home price was $1,278,179, and the median price was $1,199,000. So, and then the high end of that was a home on Felton Way in Cupertino. It sold for $1,920,750, but it was listed for $1,899,000. That's right, it sold for more than it was listed for. And the days on market was only 11. It was only on the market for 11 days. The lowest price home in Cupertino was on Moretti Drive, and it sold for $725,000, and it listed for $699,950. Again, that is above asking price. Both of those situations indicate a multiple offer situation on both of those properties at both ends of the spectrum. And the days on market for the lowest price home was only 4 days. So as you can see, there's obviously a lot of buyers out there that are still making business happen in Cupertino, and they're doing it quickly. Homes are not staying on the market very long at both the high and low end. And when they are selling, at least in these two cases, they're selling with multiple offers. Now, the average price per square foot of the homes that have sold in Cupertino is $711.68. Now, let's go ahead and kind of contrast that with the homes that are currently active on the market. So the numbers I'm about to give you are for homes that are for sale in Cupertino, but that have not yet sold. Now, the average asking price is $1,426,192. That's actually pretty reasonable for the average price of a home that has sold when compared to the average asking price. In most communities, you see that the average asking price tends to be higher by a pretty good chunk the average price of homes that have sold. In this case, we're not seeing that. They're within $200,000 of each other, and that's pretty good. That's an indication to me that sellers are listing their homes at realistic prices for the market. The average days on market right now for homes that are on the market, haven't sold, but are just trying to get sold, is 54 days. That's excellent. That indicates that we're flushing out properties at a regular rate in Cupertino so that none of them are artificially increasing the average days on market to some extremely high level. Now, here's another interesting piece of information. The average price per square foot in Cupertino for a home that has not sold is $671.68. And if you recall, that's lower than the average price per square foot of homes that have sold in Cupertino. And that's also unusual in other areas of the county where we're seeing those numbers tending to be pretty far away from each other in terms of folks asking way more than what the market is tending to pay. So on a square footage standpoint, homes are very reasonably priced for the market. In fact, even underpriced for the market by a little bit. So that's something interesting to note as well. Now let's go ahead and look at the same data. It's home prices data, but just going back month to month, back to January of 2007. As we can see here in April, home prices have actually declined a little bit since February. Of course, in December and January we had a drop, and then in January to February we saw an increase. Once you get in about a month into the new year, you're expected to see those types of things. Back in January, you'll notice we saw an increase between January and February, not as marked of an increase. It was really a very small increase, but an increase nonetheless. And then between February and March, we saw a decrease. We saw the same thing this month. Now, between March and April of last year, it was relatively flat with a little bit of an increase between March and April. This year we didn't. We saw a continuing drop in the average sales price. The average price dropped by 2.6% between March and April, and the median price change was an increase of 1.2%. So what does this tell us? Well, since it sort of bucks the trend that we saw from last year, it indicates that we're probably just not going to get as much of a price boost as we would normally expect from this type of time of year. Do I expect a continuing decline? Not really. I expect things probably to remain relatively flat. Now, here's something else that's interesting about the summer months for Cupertino. You'll notice that while in the previous slide we saw a decrease in the number of homes selling, we still see an increase in the average price. So here we are in April, and from April for the next couple of months, you can expect flat sales prices if we use last year as a model. But then, as the number of homes that are selling declines and inventory actually increases, the homes that do sell tend to sell for more than they did, which is kind of an interesting thing to note. It definitely should tell buyers that if you're looking to buy, now is the time to do it before the prices increase. So you may end up with way more choices in the summer months because of the way things are going, but you're not going to pay less than you would now. Your next big opportunity to pay slightly less for a property in Cupertino isn't going to be till October, again, assuming we see the same sort of market influences that we saw back in 2007 at the same time. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the days to sell in past years. Again, this number tends to jive with down markets with big increases in days on market. A little bit of a difference here. Back in 2001, which was a relatively tough market, Cupertino actually saw less than 30 days on the market for homes, so that really bucks the trend. And then we saw a gradual, not so gradual, a pretty dramatic increase between 2001 and 2003, where the market was also tough. But then 2004 did extremely well. 2005 halved the amount of time it took to sell a home in the market. And then we've seen a gradual increase all the way up to 2008. Between April of 2007 and April of 2008, it has taken, in the number of days it takes to get a home sold has increased by 50%, an increase of a total of 17 days. So, again, these numbers are all far better than the numbers we're seeing in Santa Clara County in general. In many cases, in some communities within the county, this number, the number of days on market is half the number of days on market of other communities. So Cupertino's has no reason to be upset about the current performance, but it is definitely an increase from last year and previous years where we've had a more challenging market. Now let's go ahead and look at days to sell just over the past months, looking all the way back again to January of 2007. And again, we'll point out the dramatic increase in December and January of 2008 and December of 2007. And at the time that this number was first shown, I made sure and pointed out that a lot of that had to do with the fact that a lot of homes that have been on the market for an extremely long time finally sold. So since you get a relatively small number of homes selling in the community of Cupertino, if you get just a handful of homes that have been on the market for an exceptionally long time, it can throw this number way off. And that's what happened in those 2 months. Now, the good news is that homes that have been on the market for a very long time sold. When you start seeing homes that have been on the market for an extremely long time selling, and you're seeing them continuing to sell close to asking price, which was the case here, that can indicate that the market is in a transitionary situation where we're changing from homes that just aren't selling to homes that have been on the market for a long time now starting to sell. It usually indicates a higher level of interest on the part of buyers, perhaps more competition for certain types of homes, that type of thing. Now, if you'd like to get in contact with me, I do appreciate y'all taking the time to listen to my market reports on these various cities and communities within Santa Clara County. You can find other information, podcasts, articles, other things I've done, and also a great multiple listing search tool, map-based, on my website at www.soldbyrobert.com. It's a fantastic tool. You can search for properties all the way from San Francisco down to Monterey. You don't have to provide your email address or any other types of information. It's just a great tool. What's great about it is you don't have to know where cities begin and end for doing searches on specific areas. You just zoom in on the area you care about, and the homes that are currently listed just show up as pins and a map, and you can put your mouse over them and a picture and description will come up. It's a really great tool. If you'd like to get in touch with me, ask any questions, make any suggestions or observations, please feel free to send those to me at robert@soldbyrobert.com. If you'd like to give me a phone call, I'd love to talk to you about anything relating to real estate. Phone number is 408-852-0525. For those of you who spend some time online, you can also send me an instant message via AOL, Google Talk, or Yahoo Instant Messenger, and just send that to The Rebel Broker. And if I'm online, I'll be happy to have a chat with you. I also appreciate referrals from anyone out there who knows someone who needs help with real estate here in Santa Clara County, or if you need help yourself, feel free to get in touch and I'll help you in any way I can. Thanks again, and I hope you all have a great week, and I look forward to talking to you next time.